Welcome to Small Arm Solutions. Today we're looking at the B&T or Brugger & Thomas APC 308. I had great difficulty getting my hands on these. We were fortunate enough to have a viewer who has been willing to loan these to us. So I'm very, very grateful to that viewer to finally take a look at this. Now, what we have here is an absolutely beautifully made rifle. Manufacturing beauty. It's all I can say. This is very different from the APC-9 when we look at that compared to other guns. This gun has a lineage that comes from guns that are around the exact same price range, which we'll talk about later. This thing is basically a very, very refined SCAR. Some additional features, but it has some other benefits on it as well. But again, very, very beautifully made. Swiss made. Caliber 7.62 NATO 308 Winchester. What's nice about it is it uses the standard 308 magazines, the SR25 type, which makes it compatible with pretty much every magazine that's out there, and it's relatively inexpensive. So that's probably one of the most important aspects on this over the SCAR. Again, we're going to get more into that comparison a little bit later. This came in as a pistol. And the viewer who purchased this got himself basically an ACR type stock assembly that's both telescopic and side folding in the HD pistol brace, so he could have this thing and shoot it properly. Now, of course, if he decided to SBR this, he could definitely put the standard stock on here as well. So what we have here is gas-operated short-stroke piston, very similar to that of the SCAR. So we have an external piston operated. Now we're going to go from sort of back to front, and before we take it apart, we'll talk about more about the inside of it. But again, we're looking at an aluminum upper receiver. We have a full-length 1913 rail. This had come with backup sights, which are made by B&T, and he had chose to put on the MRO with the 3x magnifier. Now, the first time I shot this gun, I used this, but then I decided, no, I wanted to put a real scope on it for some longer range shooting. This is great for making it more of a tactical type gun, a couple 100-yard gun, but this one is definitely capable of reaching out much further. But this is what the viewer chose. But when our testing, we tried this as well as something else. So looking at the rifle, very much a SCAR type receiver. One-piece upper receiver, free-floated barrel. This is M-LOK, so we have 3 slots on the other side, but we have a 1913 rail section on the bottom. So it works out quite well for your accessories on the side, as well as being able to put your vertical pistol grip, if you so chose, as well as a bipod. Now, looking at the upper receiver, you can see we do have our shell deflector. Looking at the lower, we have a polymer receiver. This is an excellent polymer receiver, which gives us full ambidextrous controls, ambidextrous safety. As you can see, we have our magazine release and our bolt catch. Pull back to the rear, we have a bolt catch. It drops down. So then we flip it over to the left-hand side. You can see everything exactly mirrors. The same location for the bolt catch, the same location for the ambidextrous magazine release, as well as the safety. So it's fully mirrored on both sides. The charging handle, as you see, this can be put on, it is reciprocating and can be done on either side, whichever you so chose. Now we have a 1 12-inch cold hammer forged barrel, which is an excellent cold hammer forged barrel, chrome plated. We have everything that we would want on that. 14.5-inch is a good all-round barrel length. 16-inch is probably a little bit more preferable. 18-inch is probably the best overall for a 308. But this is designed as basically as an assault rifle, not as a DMR type rifle, although this thing has the capability of being a very effective DMR rifle. We do have a gas valve on the front, which we'll look more at in a little bit, with a suppressed and unsuppressed. The front sight base or gas block is drilled and pinned, which means this is designed to be a battle rifle. You're not going to have any issues with this thing working its way forward and causing any problems. Now, the flash suppressor here is relatively interesting. This particular one here is a bird cage, but we also have the notches that are cut into it. And what these notches are, so if you were to get a hold of barbed wire, you had to get through barbed wire. You'd stick that right in the barbed wire, give it a twist, and pull off a round, and that will cut through the barbed wire. So that's what you have on there. Thread pitch is 5/8 by 24, so you can put a suppressor on here. This flash suppressor is called the Rotex 2A. I don't know if this is commercially available as an upgrade or if it's proprietary to B&T. Now, if you wanted to SBR this, this would be perfect for you to remove to put on any of your attachments for a sound suppressor. So then what we're going to do now is we're going to disassemble this and take a look at the inside. You can release the magazine. Check to make sure. Now again, Swiss workmanship. This thing is like on ball bearings. And you can also feel, which we're going to take apart, there's a buffer, or hydraulic buffer in the back, and you can feel where that engages in here also. So make sure it's empty. We're going to get any kind of a suitable tool, push inward on the 2 pins. Pull both from the right hand side, and now we just drop right out our trigger module. Now, as we can see, very, very beautifully made. It's an aluminum trigger module, very, very lightweight. This utilizes an AR-15 M16 type trigger, which means you can replace this with any kind of a trigger that you would like that would go into an AR-15, a Geisley, or whatever. This does have a proprietary 2-stage in it. They've also removed the back of the hammer, so you don't hit the disconnector. Now, this is not really a problem with the rifles. It's only with the pistols, but this is, they're using the same parts in the 9mm they are in the 7.62, so it's sort of universal. We can see where the bolt catch is on both sides. You can see when you lift up how it engages, but just beautifully made. And this also, if you so chose, this you can remove this pistol grip and you can put on any AR-15 type pistol grip. Again, if this was mine, this would come right off and it'll be a Magpul Myad on there. But just beautifully machined. Very, very well made. Now to remove the stock, we just push down and pull out. Now, one of the things that really makes this rifle stand out from the Scar is the fact you have a little buffer on here. Now, this hydraulic buffer does give you a less felt recoil than, for instance, the Scar without it. This is a very unique feature that B&T does offer on here that really separates this, from the Scar. But this is an excellent recoil reduction mechanism. Again, the stock, ACR type stock with the HD pistol brace. Unfortunately, you can actually see some hair. This is not what you would call a whisker-friendly type stock. So to remove the bolt carrier grip, we're going to remove the recoil spring. Pull back the bolt until it lines up with the notches we see here. We're going to lift that right out. Now we're going to drop the bolt out. Now looking at the bolt, we have basically an AR-180 or AR-18 bolt mechanism. You can see the cam pin on the side. You can see the bolt. Now looking at the bolt, you can see there's 2 ejectors instead of 1. This is what you're seeing on most of the high-end guns at this moment, because the shorter length of the barrel, the more you have for as far as speed of the bolt coming back. And in some cases, you could have a hard time getting the having enough time for the cartridge case to eject with 1 ejector. By having 2 in there, you have no problems with failure to eject. It ejects them clear of the rifle. This is a benefit. Now, for disassembly of the bolt, this is really interesting. It's very simple. Basically, push it all the way to the rear, grab onto the sides, and pull right out. And it comes out as an assembly. So, as you can see, we have our firing pin and we have our bolt. Disassembly of the firing pin, relatively simple. So once you push that outward, we can remove the firing pin. Now, this is under extreme string tension, so I want to be very, very careful when you do it. Now, to remove the ejector, or extractor, we don't really need to do that. That you would need a very small roll pin punch to do, and it's not really necessary. But you can see we have a very heavy-duty firing pin spring. It's the double braided. Now, why do we do this on 308s? Now, when using a match-grade ammunition, you need to have this in there because if you have the firing pin that's going back and forth, it's free-floating like a normal AR-10 would be. You have very, very light primers on those, very, very soft primers, and just that inertia could set them off. So what this does is by having this in here, you have to have the hammer actually striking this for it to move forward. This is a very big safety precaution. Now for reassembly, we're going to drop that right back in. So this is a little bit difficult to do. I'm going to drop that in. We're going to have to push that down in there very heavily. Reintroduce that pin. Drive it in so it's flush. And there you have it. Now again, this is AR-18 for as far as the way the bolt carrier is concerned. The bolt is very, very different. And you can see the machining on this is just absolutely gorgeous. And this is why you buy the Swiss firearms. Now we introduce the bolt from the front. Now you will get a little bit of pressure on here because you do have this spring on here. So we're just going to get that spring Push in from the rear, allows it to slide right back into place. Now we're going to make sure we align it so we have the extractor to the left. Push all the way back in. Now we're going to take our cam pins. You can see we have the 2 claws, and that's going to go right over the firing pin. Drop that right back in, push it all the way in. It engages. Now push forward. Now we're back in business. So we'll take a look at the gas system now. So to remove, we're going to push in the little plunger, and we're going to rotate, and we're going to pull right out. We have a very basic system. We have a piston, operating rod assembly, and you have your gas valve. 2 positions, you have suppressed and unsuppressed. Now this particular system does not utilize gas rings, which that means you have a little bit of overgassing compared to some of the other ones because of the fact that you do have some of the gas that flows back. But a very, very simple system. So you put it right back in. Push right in. Then you can just rotate. And there you have it. And it gives you right here normal, and over here suppressed. So like right now we're in suppressed. Now we're in normal. Reassembly. Bolts in the unlock position. Drop the bolt in. Now we have to line back up for the lever. Now again, right or left side. I prefer it on the left side. So we're going to drop the back in. We're going to take our recoil spring, drop it in like so. Now we have our recoil spring assembly. Drop it in, push in, and we're going to push down so that the hole lines up. And there you have it. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take this to the range and we're going to see how it shoots. As we saw from the range, this thing shot absolutely beautiful. For as far as we shot it really at 100 yards. Unfortunately, the target I left at the range. It was sort of hot that day, so we sort of left that one there. But our groups were just about 1.25 inches with Black Hills 168 grain match OTM. The ammunition that we used was Black Hills 175, 168, SIG 150 grain full metal jacket, and some M80 ball. And it liked everything that we put through it. We did not suppress it, again, due to the fact that this was loaned to us by one of our viewers. I didn't want to take his flash suppressor off. So overall, it was beautiful. If you're looking for some really cool steel targets, give Challenge Targets a try. Take a look at their website. With our SAS code, you can get 10% off of every steel target that they have. Now's where we're getting into something a little bit interesting, because what does this thing compare to? The Scar 17. Now you look at the Scar 17, we have a lot of similarities to it. But which one of these would I prefer? This is where this is going to get a little bit interesting, because when you look at both rifles, both of them, their prices are comparable. You're looking at the MSRP of the APC of $3,500 and the Scar $3,162. So basically you're looking at the exact same price. So if you look at the features on it, you have basically the same thing for as far as the ambidextrous safety. Now the bolt catch, on the other hand, you do not have an ambidextrous bolt catch on the Scar. It's in a perfect location as well. You do have an ambidextrous magazine release, but I have to say the magazine release on the APC 308 is much nicer to feel. Trigger. Undoubtedly, the APC has a much nicer trigger than the Scar. Unless you were to go out and purchase the Geisley's Scar trigger, this is a vastly superior trigger. The safety, much easier to operate on the APC than it is on the Scar. For as far as the stock's concerned, this is a pistol stock. If you look at the real Scar stock, if you look at the real APC stock, which is like a side-folding skeleton type, I have to give that little bit of an edge to the Scar 17 for as far as the adjustability. However, I would have to give it to the APC for durability, for a much more durable stock. Scars were known to have issues with that. The next thing I would talk about would be the rails. Well, this is a much more up-to-date version. The Scar 17 really hasn't really changed too much. This we have modern 1913 rails on the top, on the bottom, and we have M-lock on the sides. The Scar is all 1913 rails. So looking at the charging handles, you do have both non-reciprocating. But one of the things about the Scar is, you can see from this Scar, we have a aftermarket charging handle that's much more easy to get to than the one on the APC. So now we look at the gas systems. The gas system on the APC is vastly easier to get to. This one here does come up, but you generally have to have something to push the valve out. This thing all drops out as one unit. Backup sights. This one comes with a backup sight that's mounted onto the barrel. The backup sight is definitely a benefit having it onto the barrel, because it follows the barrel when it has its thermal expansion versus having it on top of the 1913 rail. So I will give that to the Scar. Both of them beautiful cold hammer forged barrels. Now we talk about some of the negative aspects of the Scar. The Scar is very well known for damaging optics. As you can see, the optic I have on here is the Elcan Spectre 1.5 to 6 power. This is one of the few scopes that was designed around this gun that will not come apart or become damaged with it because of the harmonics issues that this thing has due to the way that it's designed. The Scars have been known to damage optics, thermal optics, any kind of electronics. This one does not have that problem. This thing has the buffer in there, so it is not rough on them at all. So now I want to take a look at some more of the nitty-gritty, the closer issues between the two. So we're going to disassemble, again, 2 pins. And we're going to look at the lower modules. Push 1 pin. One pin that lifts right out. We have the Scar on top, and we have the APC on the bottom. APC, much nicer lower receiver. Manufactured out of aluminum. It is a little bit heavier, but it's not going to crack. It's not going to break. It's a much more durable unit altogether. We take a look at the bolt catch. The bolt catch on the APC is exactly mirrored left to right. Well, we only have a bolt catch on the side. It's a standard ping pong paddle like an AR-15 or M16. If you look at our magazine release, much easier to operate, than the scar. If we look at the safety is much easier to get to with the APC. Now looking at the opposite side, as you see, we have a different location for the magazine release on the scar. Everything is exactly mirrored on the APC, but you also have the bolt catch. So you have a fully ambidextrous lower receiver here versus a pretty much a right-handed, because you don't have a bolt catch on the right-hand side here. Now looking at the inside, trigger. AR-15 M16 type trigger on the APC-9. This is a proprietary, more like the FAL. This trigger on the APC is vastly superior, much smoother, much more accurate. Maintenance, I personally believe this is an easier one to maintain as well. Less parts. You don't have to worry about plastic tips breaking off. I think it's a much better, lower receiver assembly, much more durable, much better made. Okay, looking at the stocks, top we have the APC-9. Top we have the APC-308. Bottom is the scar. Now, you have to keep in mind this is the pistol brace just due to the fact that it's out for importation. This is what it had to be. Showing you a picture right now of the actual APC stock, which is more of a wire type stock or more of a skeletonized type stock. So I have to give the scar the points for as far as more adjustability, because it's both side folding as well as telescopic. However, this is a part that's been known to break. In fact, most of the operators who did carry the Scar 17s were known to carry extra stocks because they would break off. APCs aren't known for that. So you take a look at this particular system here. We also have the buffer. Well, what that buffer does is it removes some of that felt recoil, which you do notice when you fire these two side by side. You will notice a lighter felt recoil on the APC versus the Scar. Magazines. APC uses a standard SR25 type magazines. Very durable, very reliable. A lot of them available on the aftermarket. Scar, proprietary magazine based off of the FAL magazines. These are known to break off the bottom here. These are not known to have the best of reliability. But due to the fact that the Scar had, there's no NATO standardized 308 magazine, FN was free to put in their own kind of magazine, which it did, which is proprietary. Very, very expensive. You're looking at probably 3 times the price for a Scar magazine versus the standard 308 magazine. So there are some manufacturers who do make lower receivers for the Scar that will take the SR25 type magazines, but you're looking at quite a bit of money to do such. Okay, now we're looking at bolt carrier groups. Now, the top is a Scar. This is short stroke, even though it looks like a long stroke, because you do have a piston that's in the front sight base. So you have much more mass on the one for the Scar. And you have below here, which looks like a standard AR-118 or AR-180 type bolt carrier mechanism. Now, you can see the machining on here. Both of them are very well, but I tell you, you got to hand it to the Swiss. They're able to do it. Disassembly. This is much more adaptable to Scars as far as disassembly, due to the fact that it's very easy to disassemble. Basically, you have you push one pin out, you drop your firing pin out, pull your cam pin out, pull your bolt out. So that's basically all you have right there. Again, as we showed with the APC 308, is we're pushing all the way into the rear, and we're lifting out the cam pin, and we pull the bolt out. So we're looking at a one-piece system versus multi-piece. So if you look at it from the standpoint of a military rifle, this one here, you're less likely to lose parts than you are on the Scar. That's a really good idea. So as you can see, both very well machined. The APC 308 has dual ejectors versus a single ejector on the Scar, which is definitely what you would call a reliability enhancement. So reassembly of the APC, very, very quick. Okay, we have to make sure that we have the extractor pointing in the right direction. There you go. Reassembly of the Scar. Make sure your extractor is facing in the right direction. Drop in our cam pin. Make sure it's straight. Drop it in the firing pin. And drop in our retainer pin. Now, we're not going to be disassembling the gas systems on these, but you can see from earlier, this is very easy to disassemble by just pushing a pin, and the gas system will come right out. This one here, you do the same thing, but chances are you're going to have to do something to knock the piston out of the front here. For as far as the receivers are concerned, both of them are extremely well-made receivers. Obviously, the APC is more modernized using the M-lock. I can't say one of these is higher quality than the other, but we will talk about those front sights again. Again, the front sight on the SCAR is right on the gas block, which is good. Again, with thermal expansion, it follows the barrel, so it keeps you more accurate with when it heats up versus the APC. So when you compare the two, what do I think? Well, I have to say that features and quality, I have to give the edge over to the APC. But we have some reality we have to deal with, though. And that reality is the APC does not have the combat experience that the SCAR does. So we can't say it's combat proven like we can the SCAR. But I will say, feature for feature, I think the APC is a nicer rifle. Not for much more money. The lower receiver is nicer. You have the advantage of the hydraulic buffer on there, which gives you a little bit less felt recoil, which is certainly a benefit. You have less parts to lose on the APC than you do on the SCAR. So obviously this one here, with the exception of having the combat experience, I think is a much better made rifle. But now where do I think the SCAR is? Well, the SCAR has the benefit, number one, it's combat tested. So you know you're getting the reliability. And also that you have an American-made parts made in America, so you can get the spare parts, which that is really the big hiccup with the APC. It's being able to get your hands on the spare parts that would be necessary if the gun was to go down. So basically what you're going to have to do is, if you were to buy one, you would have to certainly find a dealer where you can get the spare bolts and those spare parts, and then you would have to keep them in your stock. So in case something does go wrong. If I was to get the APC and spend the money, I definitely would SBR it. I would get the proper stock for it, and that's what I would do. But the cost right now is a little bit out of my price range, so I really couldn't afford one at the moment. I'm not unhappy with the SCAR by no means, but this is a gun that's very much based off of a similar system than we have with the SCAR. But I think the Swiss have definitely looked at some of the shortcomings of the SCAR, and they've made the corrections. I'd love to see some basic combat experience with the APC 308 to see if it does hold up the same way that the SCARs do. I actually would love to see how this thing fires on full auto too, because I would think with that buffer on there, it would make it a lot more controllable. I'd also be more curious to see what the cyclic rate is on the APC, because the gas system is slightly different. It is slightly lighter. I imagine you're going to have a little bit higher of a rate of fire on this one, but considering that the SCAR is a very low cycle rate, you're looking around 600 rounds a minute, 600 to 700 rounds a minute. This, I would imagine, probably would be around that 700, 750. So you get a slightly higher rate of fire. You have the enhancements of the dual ejectors on the APC. Now, just recently, FN has announced that they have a new model that has a non-reciprocating charging handle, and to my understanding, you would be able to upgrade. You basically would have to replace your charging handle assembly and your bolt carrier, and you could upgrade to that non-reciprocating, but I hate to think what that's going to cost. But overall, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to take a look at this from our viewer, and it's a very, very nice rifle. I certainly would recommend it, and I will be keeping an eye on looking for some combat test results from it to see how it really does hold up in the real world. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share. Thank you.